So I'm going to bring in John Deighan from Society for the Protection of the Unborn Child. But let's have your thoughts this morning, 08085 92 95 00. There are your thoughts on abortion, clearly, but then your thoughts on people's freedom to express their opinions. Should people have the freedom to express their opinions, regardless of whether you find them unpalatable or not, in a public place, outside a hospital, outside a sexual health clinic? If a woman has come to the decision that she would like to terminate a pregnancy, she's going to be aware that there are going to be people out there in the world who don't agree with that. Do they have to be able to walk past those vigils, those protests or whatever, and continue with their decision? Susan Douglas-Scott, I think, has disappeared as well. But let me bring in John Deighan from SPUC. SPUC. Do you like to call it SPUC or SPUC? Or?
Well, yes. I mean, we get
what's your short term?
Or whatever. So, yeah, we're happy with either too.
Yeah. I mean, what Susan Douglas-Scott was saying there, and you heard her, was, just not outside the hospital, not there. Yes, these are strongly held views, which she's perfectly aware are present in parts of society. But, don't use them as a pressure point for women who are going through a very difficult time in their lives.
Yeah, well, I think in society, Kaye, there are lots of controversial issues, and typically people would congregate at areas where those are crystallised, and certainly at hospitals or abortion clinics in England, that may happen. But we see it in lots of areas. Like nuclear weapons, for example. We could say the same there, or people campaigning about independence or Brexit or Israel and Palestine. There's controversial issues that we may all have sides on, but if we want to have a democratic society, we really need to be able to put up with the fact that there are those who exist who have a different opinion to ours. And I think what we really need to do is allow the society to see that and to take on board that, well, what exactly are these people there for, and examine it. I think the particular issue with abortion is that there has been a radicalisation of those who are pro-abortion. That we just can't seem to accept that pro-life people exist anywhere in society. And we're seeing this sort of push. It really started in Ealing, around that abortion clinic. And ironically, it's one where an inquiry recently found that a woman died after having an abortion at Ealing Clinic. But it was a buffer zone there that was first introduced, and the people responsible for that have been encouraging councils across the UK to take the same action as them. But all I would say to people is, if you believe in democracy, you have to accept that there will be people who have views that you disagree with, and what the pro-life people would say is, well, the controversy is here for a reason. Can we at least explore that? But what we're finding with the pro-abortion movement now is they want to close down the public space to any consideration of the issue. And I think Leslie phoning in earlier and Sandy get to the crux of some of the
okay. Well, John, stay there. We've got Doreen has called in with an alternative view. We'll come right back to her, but tell us what you think. Is this about democracy, the freedom to express your views? And John Deighan, I think, is aware that these can be controversial views, but we'll say there's a parallel with many controversial views that, some of us might hold. And we should hold dear the right to be able to express those views in public places, to have them discussed. We've just been listening to John Deighan, Chief Executive of the Society for the Protection of the Unborn Child, and he says it is every individual's democratic right to express their views in public, given that some of them may well be controversial, but nonetheless, if we are to have a discussion about these controversial issues, then we need to hear the different views expressed. So let me come to Doreen. Good morning, Doreen.
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning. Thanks very much for getting in touch with us. So Leslie called in and she gave us a bit more detail on this particular vigil that was held outside the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Glasgow. As I say, that's not the only one. There have been others across Scotland. Do these people have the right to express their views?
I think these people obviously have a right to express their views, but I happened to witness the vigil at earlier this year, and I was deeply upset by it because of my personal history. And while I can understand that the rights of the unborn child are hugely important, I couldn't be more child-orientated or child-centred in any way. I think these views should be kept to places where people choose to go to have a meeting or choose to go and have a discussion. And support for people who are going through decision making could be made via online services or the very good advice services that there already are. But I found that deeply upsetting because of my own personal history. And I think it wasn't, what I saw wasn't, it didn't, I mean, I'm a very active church member. I'm very involved in the life of the church. And to me, that was not a prayer vigil. It was a demonstration.
What was it that upset you so much, Doreen?
Well, it's incredible to go back over 40 years, but just over 40 years with two very healthy children, a boy and a girl, both born in the Queen Mothers, I had decided that I wanted our third child to be born in the GP unit at the Southern General. More natural, less intervention possibly. And therefore I didn't go for a hospital examination until almost 6 months, at which point they discovered that the baby had died in utero and this third child was not going to be a live child. And it was the Southern General, which was the same site as where these people are demonstrating. And I had to go into hospital and have this dead fetus, which I had carried for nearly 6 months, removed. And I was very traumatised by the whole experience. And I remember as I went under the anaesthetic, pleading with them not to kill my baby because I couldn't accept that this little thing that I'd carried was no longer alive. Now, I felt guilty because I had two healthy children, and therefore I didn't think that I had any right to grieve in the way that I was grieving. We've gone on to have a third beautiful, fantastic, healthy child, but the trauma is still there, and the loss of a child is still there. And to see these people, I delivered a lady for an operation to the hospital and couldn't find a parking space and had to drive past their demonstration twice. I don't think they understand that people who go in for terminations or abortions, whichever word you like to use, are all doing it from choice. There can be many genetic problems that they've met. There can be unsuccessful pregnancies like my situation, and that to add to the trauma and distress that these people are going through by demonstrating outside, I think is uncaring. And I think Glasgow City Council should put some kind of distance between that happening and the hospital gates. It's over 40 years ago, and I'm still getting upset by what I saw this year.
I mean, John, that's the thing, isn't it? You don't know who's going in. You don't know their story. You don't know their circumstances.
Exactly. Yeah, and exactly. I mean, I would encourage Doreen to look up Arch online and give Arch a phone call.
No, but John, the thing is, Doreen has told you that she was very distressed and upset by the experience of having to go past that vigil and to bring up all those difficult thoughts and difficult experiences of 40 years ago. Had this been Doreen now? What if there's a now Doreen walking past there?
Well, I think they are there to offer, they speak on a variety of situations, as you said, and as Doreen said. So some of them, it might be the last opportunity they've got to think, I don't want to do this. I've got pressure from my partner pushing me towards this.
Doreen knew that she was going to deliver a dead child, John. Doreen knew she was going to go in, what procedure was going to have to be performed, and she was traumatised by it. She didn't want to do it. She was already ridden with guilt.
Some people have had bad experiences from blood transfusions. Does that mean that we shouldn't have campaigns to make sure that the blood transfusion is safe? There are people who have different experiences, and in a democratic society, we cannot just say if people feel upset about an issue, whether it be the situation in North Korea or nuclear weapons or death penalty or Israel and Palestine, people feel upset on either side of that, so we cannot have a public discussion about it, or we cannot have people have a presence in public and examine that issue. There are support services available, and I'm suggesting one to Doreen. I really feel for her. I have experience of lots of women who've had abortions, and they really can't be helped, and they all have varying degrees of guilt. But similarly, there are some women who think, if only someone had been there for me 40 years ago, and I've had that experience recently, people saying 40 years ago, if only someone was there, like...
well, hang on, let me... Doreen, I'm very mindful of the story that you've told us, and I'm very grateful that you've called in. So I'm kind of dancing around a little bit because I don't want to drag you into discussions that you don't feel comfortable.
No, it's
with.
fine because I am not against. I mean, there are demonstrations and vigils all over different parts of Glasgow, and I would have no objection to these people choosing to have their vigil or their demonstration somewhere other than right outside the entrance to where people are going into the maternity department. I think it's unbelievably cruel, maybe unintentionally, and I'm sure unintentionally, but I don't actually think they understand the implications and the upset on people who have not chosen to go down that pathway and have got to go down that pathway for reasons that are private and personal and often tragic. And I don't think that this American-style vigil should be allowed outside hospitals in a free country.
I mean, John has been saying, and Leslie before him, that they're there to help, they're there to offer advice, they're there to offer support. Could you see yourself seeing that group in that way? Could you see yourself approaching them for some support and help?
I saw them as an aggressive group with the placards they had and the numbers that they happen to have on that day. Now, whether they have them every day during the vigil or not, I don't know. But to me, it's not a prayer vigil. I mean, prayer is something that is a wonderful strength, but can be supported by other people in private, in small groups, where you choose to join, not to have it forced on your face in that circumstances. And I really genuinely think that to be part of a movement that doesn't take into account the grief and the upset of patients and their relatives and maybe the other children in the family, I really do think they should think again.
Okay. Doreen, thank you very much indeed. John in Paisley. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
Good morning. You have been a part of some pro-life protests, is that right?
Yes, every year we have a torchlight procession from George Square down to Glasgow Cathedral, and it's very quiet and very orderly. But you always find, and especially a number of years ago, we had pro-choice people screaming abuse and all sorts of things like that, and they were allowed to stand. The police were there, but they said they were allowed to stand within about 10 yards of us. And all you could hear was this screaming. And one year in particular, which STV were covering, they came, they tore up any banners we had, broke tables. It was a complete disaster. And this goes on every year nearly. They turn up and scream all their abuse. Now, if this motion comes in, I take it that we'll need to change for all these things. The people need to be within, say, 5 blocks of that demonstration. Is that what's going to happen, do you think?
Well, the motion that is due to be considered today, which was introduced by Elaine McSporran, who's an SNP councillor, was that there should be a buffer zone around the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, because in recent times that's where there has been a vigil. So how far that buffer zone would extend to, I don't know. I mean, we heard from Susan Douglas-Scott earlier, who said that she felt such protests should be kind of behind closed doors or at meetings that have been called specifically to discuss these issues and not necessarily in the public space, because you do not know who is there in that public space. You don't know their story, you don't know their experience, you don't know the trauma that they have gone through. And we heard Doreen's story there. And she was, I think, generous enough to say that she was sure that the people at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital would have no deliberate intention to hurt her or make her feel dreadful, but they did.
I think too that would probably help maybe in this whole debate would be see if the media gave us a little bit more information about the number of abortions that were done each day, for example. You know, hundreds and hundreds. It's not. This is the whole thing. It seems to be they pick on particular cases where there's bad cases and good cases, but they don't give us the overall picture. And the overall picture is quite amazing. You know, it doesn't really get through to people, I don't think, how bad it is.
Well, I mean, I suppose that the point is whether or not you feel it is your place or anyone else's place to judge, John, or whether or not women should have the right to choose what they want to do with their own bodies. And for the people who think that it is a woman's right to choose, then they wouldn't necessarily think that you need to know that.
No, but this is the favourite debate. It's always about the women, fair enough. But what about the baby? I mean, the old days it used to be it was a fetus. Now they've given that up, of course, and said, no, it's a baby, and it doesn't really matter. Yeah, but that is the thing that people don't seem to realise.
Well, there are laws around abortion.
Oh, well, we know that. You could drive a horse and cart through the woods, I think. You know that yourself, don't you?
No. Let's bring in Brian. Hi, Brian.
Morning.
Good morning. How would you respond to John?
Well, to all the protesters, your religious busybodiness isn't wanted. He's have one aspect that he's always focused on, pro-life. When he's going to address the crimes committed in your own churches, the lives that have been lost, he's hypocrites. He's ignored that. He's quite happy to stand outside a hospital. You say you're not trying to make people feel horrible. That's exactly your game. You're trying to make the people going for abortions feel as bad about themselves as they possibly can with your passive aggressiveness, standing there with your candles lit and your wee cardigans. It's disgraceful. You don't say anything about the death penalty. I never hear you complaining about the death penalty. You aren't pro-life. You're interfering with what other people are doing with their bodies, whether it be having abortions or sexuality. That's it. Sort yourselves out. If you want to have your protests, go and have them in your living room where you can all have your wee cups of coffee and sit quietly and whine about how bad everything is. Just, honestly, it's got nothing to do with yous. It's nothing to do with yous at all.
John Deighan?
I mean, I think Brian sort of typifies the sort of radicalised approach now that people have in society, where they think they can demonise people. How he's able to characterise anyone who is pro-life so sweepingly is quite incredible. But that's typically what you get now. We've moved beyond rational consideration of issues now. There's lots of aspects that pro-life people look at, Brian. For example, it's human rights it's based on. It's Article 2 of the European Convention of Human Rights says everyone has the right to life. Now, that's part of it. The other part of it is that abortion damages women. Now, in October, we sent a dossier of evidence to 129 MSPs showing them exactly that, and we didn't get a peep of a response. This is what's happening. So, Brian, I'm afraid you've been misguided. It typically happens at university. People say, abortion is a women's rights issue, and we've all got to get on board. If you love women, you've got to support this. You have been sold a lie, and I'm afraid women are being damaged enormously by abortion. And ironically,
John, obviously you're saying that you've compiled a body of evidence to that effect. But
we have pulled together evidence that's been peer reviewed around the world about the damage it does to women, including the fact that women are more likely to commit suicide if they've had abortion, turn to alcohol, the relationships to break down. So women feel
well, John, it has to be said, John, it has to be said that those figures are open to interpretation, aren't they? Now, I'm not challenging you, but it could be said, that women will suffer mental health problems following abortion because of the way they feel they are perceived, because of the way they feel that society might judge them, because of the way they might feel that people like you think that they have killed an unborn child. So it's very difficult to draw a link between the act of abortion and women's feelings thereafter, because it is such a complex situation.
Yes, and the evidence, so you can, for example, do things like you can correlate and say, okay, well, what's the difference in mental health outcomes for women who have abortions in countries where it's very accepted or people think it's a wonderful thing, compared to places where it's much more restrictive and people frown on it.
So John,
do those parallels, and you can then start to correlate it, and you can speak to the women themselves.
Okay, John, let's go back to your... Well, John, hang on. Listen, I've got lots of friends who've had abortions. I've spoken to them at length about it, and they don't feel damaged by it. So I'm not in any way saying to you that there aren't women who do feel very damaged or raw or whatever after abortion, but I do absolutely contest your contention that all women are damaged by abortion. I have to say that as a woman with friends who have had abortions, okay? But tell us your demonstration. What is the point of your demonstration? What are you trying to achieve?
pro-life people present their argument. They try to do it rationally and typically in the face of...
But what are you trying to achieve? What's your end game, John?
Our end game is that women are not damaged by abortion and human beings are not deprived of life by abortion. That's the end game. It's a simple principle. It's a principle that every human being in our society is of value and that our society should protect them all in law. It's a simple principle.
So would you like to see abortion banned?
Yes. Abortion is bad for women and it deprives innocent human beings of life. So yes, it's a bad thing. There's always a better choice than abortion.
I mean, it's interesting when you think what's going on in Ireland, isn't it? Because next Friday they're going to have a referendum to repeal legislation there and to introduce the right for abortion up to 12 weeks.
What they will do is they will vote on whether to remove a human rights protection from their constitution. So yes, it would be a retrograde step for Ireland if they choose to do so. But in a society that typically for the last century we've worked on expanding human rights protections, and now we're looking at turning that in reverse and removing human rights protections. So that's why the pro-life movement exists. I would just say to Brian, please look into this. I feel sorry for Brian that he has obviously been hurt somewhere. That's not an intention to hurt anyone. It's an intention to stop people from going down a path that leads to a lot of hurt.
Let me bring in Therese Caherty. She's a founder member of the trade union campaign to repeal the 8th part of the national campaign. It's called Together for Yes. So Therese is a campaigner in Ireland where they will have a referendum next Friday. Good morning to you, Therese.
Good morning, Kay. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And you are campaigning for women to have the right to termination up until 12 weeks of pregnancy, yeah?
Yeah, it's quite complicated. We're actually voting on removing the 8th Amendment from the Constitution. The 8th Amendment equates the life of a woman with that of a fertilised egg. So what we're doing over here is voting to remove that and give our Parliament, our Oireachtas, as we call it here, the right to legislate on abortion without reference to the Constitution. So I would just like to say that even though abortion is banned in Ireland right now, it's banned in all cases except where a woman's life is at risk. 3,265 women went to the UK in 2016 for abortions. And the statistics show that even though a woman or a girl will face 14 years in prison here, it's a criminal offence to have an abortion in Ireland. It isn't a criminal offence to travel to England, for one. There's a certain hypocrisy in that. But every day here, 9 women or girls travel to England for abortions, and 3 other women will import abortion pills and take them in their own homes without regulation, without any medical care, without the aftercare that they will need, and they could get 14 years in prison for doing that.
I mean, presumably,
so even though the ban is here, even though the ban is here, women are still having abortions.
But presumably, John would say, and John, you're welcome to come back in, that if those women were supported in their pregnancies and supported to have their child in all the ways that they require support, then that situation would not arise.
Yeah. I mean, the case of Aisha Chidera recently, which has been there's been a public inquiry into Aisha, who travelled from Ireland. Aisha travelled to Ealing Council, Ealing area, where she went to the clinic there, and she died after having her abortion. Now, that's the sort of impact that abortion has.